Okay, so first of all, just a couple business items. So no student council offices are here today. But you did have a pretty substantive meeting at the mid-years conference on Saturday. And I'm going to remind those officers who are not here that you need to go ahead and summarize the information that you discussed on Saturday, put it in an email, and get it out to everybody else so you can make a decision about it. And I'll try to, maybe you guys can remember, you specifically were talking about the next fundraiser you're going to do. And as my understanding is, you had 3 things in the hopper. The first one was doing a flea market, yard sale, whatever you want to call it, at the expo, which I think is a great idea. But you need to start taking action steps on that now. How are you going to get stuff to bring to the thing and all that? All right, so that was one. The other thing was doing a something box sale. So the idea of a candy box or a cosmetic box, I don't know. That's getting a little more spendy, I guess. But however you want to do it, a Krispy Kreme box, there you go. You get Krispy Kreme, cosmetic, or candy. There you are. You choose based on your demographic. And I think that was the other idea. And then I know that the Valdezes are kind of, because they don't get to be here on a regular basis, they've volunteered to actually do some of their own private fundraisers, which is an interesting idea. But they're going to do a soup sale, I think, somewhere at some point, sometime. I can't remember exactly where, but they're going to be doing that. Anyway, there was another idea that got thrown out there, and I don't remember what it was. You guys remember what it was? Because I thought there was 3. Was there a third one? Or was that it? Someone suggests that got thrown out at the beginning of the meeting, but it really didn't get talked about a lot. So was it just maybe another bake sale over the next couple workshops, something like that? Maybe not. All right, so maybe it was just the box, you're going around and selling people stuff, or doing it like at your church or wherever, and then the flea market thing. So go ahead and. So I'm speaking to Isaiah, Barry, Adia, and Kent. And Kent, you're the secretary, so I think it's primarily on you to put together an email for this. But work that out. I also know that for seniors, Isaiah is hoping to get a class first together, so I think he's going to be in touch with you all about that. So, and then my understanding is, based on the numbers, it looks like you guys made probably about $115 at the sub sale on Saturday. The only thing that there was at least one other expense out there for the chips and drinks. I'm not sure how much that ended up being. So before the chips and drinks, it was $123.48 that you had made. So I'm estimating that maybe that was $15 or $20 in chips and drinks. So I think you made over $100. So that's not bad. Anyway, I don't know what the tally is for the big sale yet. So you'll have to get that figured out. Anybody here have anything they wanted to say to the student council? No? All right. Okay, so I'm just going to share one thing, and then I'll be done, and you'll be dismissed. I wanted to talk a few minutes about these words, honor and despise. Okay? Why would we want to talk about that? Because they're important. Good answer, right? Okay, so without any further comment, I'm just going to read you a very brief passage of Scripture. It's actually one that I studied with the elementary kids this morning, but I wanted to share it with you too. All right, so this is about the prophet Elisha. You guys remember him? So this is the guy who took on the mantle literally. He literally got the mantle. That's where we get that phrase. Did you guys know that? When someone says they took the mantle on, you know what that means, Truth? You took on the mantle. What does that mean?
Took on his role.
Good. Exactly. Took on responsibility. So Elisha, whose mantle did he take on?
Elijah's.
Right. Took on Elijah's. So Elisha took on Elijah's mantle literally as God's prophet, right? All right. So in 2 Kings chapter 2, this is not long after this has happened. It says that Elisha went up from there, wherever he was going, I think maybe Jericho, to Bethel. And as he was going up the road, some youths And that could be probably, these were not like, 7-year-olds. These were more like teenagers. They came out, and apparently there's a big group of them. At least 42. Probably more. So a big group of kids, a gang, okay? A gang of young folks came from the city and mocked Elisha, and said to him, "Go up, you bald head. Go up, you bald head." So Elisha turned around and looked at them and pronounced a curse on them in the name of the Lord. And 2 female bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the youths.
What's more?
Means they tore them up. Now, it doesn't say that they killed them, so I don't necessarily think that these people died. But I think when they went home to their moms and dads and they said, "What happened to you?" Let's just say I'm not going to call anybody names anymore. And then Elisha went from there to Mount Carmel, and from there he returned to Samaria. Okay, so what does this story have to do with this up here?
They didn't honor.
Okay, so let's think about it for a minute. All right, first of all, who does God say you're supposed to honor? Mercy. Right, so if you look throughout the scripture from Leviticus all the way to 2 Peter, or 1 Peter, you have repeated admonitions to honor. And what's the most famous of those? Who are you supposed to honor?
Father and mother.
Your father and mother, right. But it doesn't just end with that. You're supposed to honor the elder. You're supposed to honor the king. You're supposed to honor, in fact, 1 Peter 2 says you're supposed to honor all people. So, is there anybody you're not supposed to give honor to? Okay, so then the question really is what does honor even mean? We use that a lot. It's in the 5th commandment, honor your parents. But what does honor mean? Anybody know? Anybody want to try?
Respect.
Okay, respect. All right, that's a good word. What else? What else does it mean to honor?
To look up to.
Look up to? Maybe. Needless to say, I think there's some people that you can think of that you probably are supposed to show honor to that you don't necessarily look up to. Right? Okay, and that's okay. So it could be, and that could be a part of it. If you honor someone, you're naturally going to be thinking more positively about things that you can emulate, right? Nathaniel?
Respect.
Okay, yeah, that's what Truth said.
No.
All right, but that's a good one. Anybody else?
To not talk badly about them behind their back or make fun of them.
Okay, right. So yeah, not make fun. Okay, good. If you have a trophy, any of you ever gotten trophies like for playing sports or whatever? That's probably a bad example because those trophies are like dinky little plastic things. Who cares? But okay, but let's do something here. Let's think of okay, for lack of the fact that the Super Bowl is coming up, and that's what's on a lot of people's minds. Have you guys ever seen that Super Bowl, the Super Bowl trophy? It's nice. It's very nice. I don't think you're ever going to see anybody who is on a Super Bowl winning team, and I don't even know where that trophy ends up. I don't know if they share it amongst themselves for the year or whatever. But when you have a trophy, what do you do with it? Do you throw it in the back 40, in a hole, or what do you do with it?
You put it in your expression.
Right, because why? It's important. And what do you do with things that are important, Mercy?
You honor them.
There's a V word I'm thinking of. Value, yes. You value it, right? That, I think, is a really good word for honor, because when you honor someone, it means you show value to that person. With your mom and dad, one of the best ways that you can honor your mom and dad is by listening to them. Okay? Because when you listen to someone, it means that you value what it is that they're saying. Okay, so contrast honor with this word. Despise. Do you know what despise means? Well, just what do you think it means? Nathaniel.
Disrespect.
Disrespect. Okay, do you see the correlation? You said that honoring is respecting, right? So despising is disrespecting. Okay, what else?
Disvalue.
I'm not tired to talk to you. Truth?
Disvalue.
Yes, I'm glad you got your prefixes going. Dishonor, disvalue. You shouldn't diss people, right? Yeah, and this is true, right? Because that's good, right? So, you know, if you met one of your fellow Super Bowl players who was entrusted with the trophy for the weekend, and you found out that, you know, he took the trophy on a camping trip and, you know, dropped it in the fire and it got all smudged, and he's like, gee guys, I'm really sorry about the trophy. What would you all think? Like, what? Do you even have any value for what that trophy means? Right? No. Okay, so what does this all have to do with the story, and what does it have to do with you as student council members? All right. So what was happening here? Was this story really about Elisha? Yes or no? Because, well, I mean, wasn't Elisha just having a bad day? I mean, like, come on, what's the big deal? I mean, he's a prophet, and all these kids came around and made fun of his bald head. I mean, come on, what's the big deal, right? He's grown up; he should be able to handle that, right? So isn't he like just being overly sensitive? No? Why? Anybody know why?
They were showing him dishonor.
They were showing him dishonor?
They were showing God dishonor because he was their authority.
Ooh, okay. Now you're tracking on something. And Truth, what were you going to say? Yeah, you were.
I was just saying, in a joke, honor to the elders is a big deal too.
Yes, and that is very true. This is an Eastern culture, and that means, yes, showing disrespect to your elder was a huge problem. It was also in the law. You shouldn't. Now, the interesting thing is, I don't really know how old Elisha is here. You know, he's probably not that old. He's probably a younger man. He's not necessarily an older man. He's got a bald head, so we didn't even know if he was gray-haired yet. but he had just taken on the mantle of being God's prophet. And who did God's prophet represent? God. Okay, so what's going on here is that you have these group of kids, probably teenagers, young men, who are making fun of who? Making fun of God. By making fun of an authority that God had put in authority over them. Okay? So, who is Elisha really acting on behalf of when this all happens?
God.
Right. This is another one of these stories where God is making a very clear point. Look, I don't just have all this here for you to just disregard and make fun of. You don't get to go out and trash my prophet who speaks on behalf of me without a little consequence. And I personally think this is really cool because God uses animals to get our attention. We see that throughout Scripture, right? One of the most famous is who? Balaam's what? Donkey, right? He gets a donkey to talk. Here you've got how about in when Jesus was with his disciples and he told Peter to go get a
Donkey.
Well, yes, those, but where did he tell Peter to get money to pay taxes?
Fish.
Out of a fish, right? So God takes his creation and uses it to teach lessons. So here's a situation where God took bears. And we just talked to the elementary kids all about bears, and that was fun. But the point is that God used bears, and I think all of us You know, if you have at least a brain in your head, which most people do, and if you're actually using the brain in your head, most people know that it isn't particularly a wise idea to go get real cozy with a bear out in the woods, right? Because a bear will do what to you? It can tear your head off if it wants. And in some cases, it really's done that. And in this case, you have two mama bears. I don't know where their babies were, but they didn't know where they were either. And all they saw were a bunch of these guys who looked like they needed some lessons. So God uses these bears to knock these guys around a bit, and more than that, to actually tear them open, to maul them. And I don't think they died, but I think they probably never made fun of anybody ever again. Certainly not bald people, and certainly not bald prophets. Okay, so what's the point? Why am I talking about honor and despising? Because this is such an important lesson for you as young people. It's important for you as people in the student council. And it's also important for you to understand in the broader picture of what's going on in our country and our world. Because the natural tendency is this. The natural tendency is to despise. Okay? It's to despise, first of all, what God has said you should value. It's to despise what elders and parents and older people have to say. Because there's this constant tension with, especially as young people, and I understand this too. You want to do things differently. You see lots to criticize. You don't like what this person is doing. You don't like how your parents raised you. You think your grandparents are old and senile. Okay? Those are all things, those are all the same language for this word. You don't value it. And God says, no, that's not how I operate. You need to honor. You need to honor all people. You need to specifically honor your parents. And you need to honor me. You know, even when someone who is supposed to be honored isn't acting very honorable. That's when it's really hard. But that doesn't get you off the hook. That doesn't mean you can just say, forget it. I don't value any of this. And in our country right now, we're at a point where where people have forgotten this lesson. And right now, we have a whole generation of people who have been taught to despise. Yeah. They've been taught to disvalue and to dishonor. And so when they look at our heritage and our history, and they see things that they disagree with or don't like, they no longer have the capacity to be able to value what is good and to honor that. Instead, it's all about, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that, that guy was horrible, she was bad, that's terrible, I can't learn anything from any of these people because they're all just horrible people, and I'm just going to do whatever I think is good. Okay? You know, we have a whole crowd of youth who are essentially looking at their founding fathers and mothers and saying, go up, you bald head. They're calling them names, and they can't have the propensity to see the value that's there. Okay? Don't be like that. Don't be like that. Honoring doesn't mean you agree with everything. Honoring doesn't even mean you look up to all these people. Okay? You don't have to make a hero out of everybody either that you're supposed to honor. Okay? But it does mean that you still find that, first of all, why do we value anybody? Why do we value anybody at all?
Made in the image of God.
Because they're made in the image of God. They're God's image bearers. No matter who they are, they still bear that mark. And they still have that intrinsic value. And you can still value them, and you can give them respect, and you can give them honor on that. Doesn't matter if it's a guy on the street or a person who's leading the country. Doesn't matter. You give them respect, you give them honor. All right, and as student council members, one of the hardest place, sometimes, it's hard to show honor to your peers. Now, this is a thing that doesn't get talked about very much, but it's true. You guys hear about honoring your authorities, which you need to do. You need to honor people who are older than you, but guess what? You need to honor your friends. And that means, Nathaniel, you don't look at purity and say, oh, that's a dumb idea. You know, who would ever do that? Or mercy, you don't look at truth and say, Well, you haven't been around very long, have you? What are you talking about? I mean, that's a ridiculous idea. So, and I don't, or, you know, you look at each other, you talk about what's going on in your lives. One of the things that we have a struggle, especially as young people, is we're always comparing, right? Who does that? Who compares what's going on in your life with other people's lives? Right? I was actually even thinking about this today at lunch when we were over there sitting down at lunch. How many of you, whenever you come into a big group of people and everybody's brought their own lunch, right? What are you doing?
I wish I could have their lunch.
Oh, wow, look at that. They have, you know, steak and baked potatoes and Jell-O for their lunch, and all we've got is peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Or you might look at someone else's lunch and say, wow, really? That's it? I can see you packed your lunch today. Right? Or you look at how someone's dressed. I had someone tell me that when I was growing up. Well, I can see your mother dresses you. Now, the bad part of that story is that I don't think I said it to him, but in my head I said, well, I can obviously see she doesn't dress you. But you see how both of those statements are made from a point of despising? That young man, because for whatever reason he thought I didn't look cool. I don't know. So he despised my appearance because it didn't fit his criteria for what he valued. And I flipped it around and I despised him because he was trying to be cool. And it looked however it looked to me. And the bottom line is, well, what does God say? You don't judge anybody by their outward appearance. You look at their heart. What's going on with their heart? So it doesn't really matter. Okay. So as a council, when you guys are talking about fundraiser ideas, there are going to be ideas that people throw out there that some of you are going to say, that would never work. That is the dumbest thing ever. Like, why would you do that? Why would we waste our time? And it isn't that you shouldn't raise an objection and say, no, but you need to understand how to value the idea and then have the good discussion about, well, how would that work? Let's see how that would work. And actually give the idea, or I should say, you at least give the person who made the suggestion the value of being able to share their idea, and then you can discuss about how to make it work. Does that make sense? Yes? No? Yeah. Okay, so that's my main word for you today is honor one another and honor God. Don't despise the smallest thing. I love how it says in the scripture that when Jesus came, he didn't want, the way that he came and interacted with people was to not crush the smoking reed. Do you guys understand that visual? So you all know what a reed is, like if you've ever been to like a marsh and you have those big kind of tall, stocky things, green things, and they're kind of like a bulrush, or like a cattail? Okay, so are those things particularly strong? Like, would you go pick one of those things up and turn it into a walking stick and go walk with it? Not very far. Eventually it dries up and it gets really weak, right? So then imagine if you put something like that, like over a campfire, and it, sometimes how you take like a piece of grass or something and it will smoke, right? It will, if it catches on fire, it doesn't really burn very well, but it kind of smokes, and then it kind of gets limp, right? It kind of falls over, and it's, So what Jesus was saying is that his goal was to be so compassionate. He didn't come to condemn. He didn't come to crush. Even someone who's like a smoking reed. Like, I don't have anything of value. And Jesus is coming to tell those people, no, I value you. Okay? So that's how you want to be with each other. All right? Okay. Ruth? Could you check the live stream and see if we have any questions? Otherwise, you guys have your next student council meeting is going to be in February. So hopefully you can have some things decided by then.
We have a comment from Yvonne Newcomb. Says donation of chips and drinks.
Okay, so that means that they are donating the chips and drinks to the student council. So you made $123.48. So we don't have to subtract anything from that. So there you go. All right, so your next workshop is February. What day? 23rd. So a little less than a month. All right, very good. You guys are dismissed. Meeting adjourned.